quotes, infused with the scent of potpourri, the films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. You can find more of our work at obsessiveviewer.com, and while every episode will always be free, if you would like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for an obscene amount of bonus audio content, including TV and book reviews, immediate reaction movie reviews, Patreon potpourri episodes, movie commentary tracks, and much more, all depending on the tier that you sign up at. Again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find me on social media and Letterboxd at obsessiveviewer. And today on the show, we will be reviewing two recent releases as I clear my throat. First, the highly anticipated Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, currently in theaters for 1 week, oddly enough, before its Netflix release on, I believe it's December 23rd. And we'll round out the show with a review of Smile, which is currently available to stream on Paramount+. And joining me today are two of my friends and colleagues from the IFJA, Andy Carr, whose podcast Odd Trilogies can be found wherever you get your podcasts, and Mitch Ringenberg, whose work can be found on Midwest Film Journal. Gentlemen, how is it going, you guys? I added that there, yeah. How's it going, guys?
It's good to be here. It's good to be obsessors.
Nice.
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Nice. Well, I'm happy to have you guys here. Why don't you go ahead and... you guys have both been on the show before. Actually, the last time the three of us recorded something together, I believe that was the... was it the three of us when the incident in the mall happened?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
That was Nightmare Alley, right?
Nightmare Alley, yes.
We were accosted by the mall security guard.
Mall security, because it's illegal to produce something that is for profit.
And you should feel bad about that.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
because Simon malls need their cut.
They do. So yeah, almost around a year. I don't know exactly what date it was, but just about an exact year from then, and we're here now, and no one is going to accost us this time. So hopefully not, at least.
Maybe my cats.
Yeah, Pizza might too. She's been pretty docile all day, so she's ready to be a cat for now. So we'll see. She's roaming around. So anyway, so how are you guys doing? I already asked that. And if you want to take a minute and just tell us like what you've been up to, what like some recent things you've posted online, like reviews and everything, and where people can find you on the internets. Mitch, do you want to get started on that?
Yeah. Not even sure what the last thing I reviewed was probably a couple weeks ago. I do have a review actually of Glass Onion publishing to Midwest Film Journal tomorrow that you can read probably early in the morning. You can catch my review for Glass Onion there. I'm sure you'll read a lot of the same things I'm probably going to say here about it. But yeah, that's you can check that out at Midwest Film Journal.
Sweet. And where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Wounded Kite. I post a lot of random shit on there. And Midwest Film Journal, that's mainly where you can find like any of my film writing, and you can kind of just find my random rants on Letterboxd too. I think it's also Wounded Kite on Letterboxd.
Sweet, and I'll put a link to all that in the show notes of this episode as well, which you can find at obsessiveviewer.com/OV386. And Andy, how are you tonight, and what's some recent stuff that you've been up to, and where can we find you online?
I'm doing well. I've let's see, the most recent thing I think I published out into the world was the last episode of my Odd Trilogies podcast that I host with my friend Logan Sowash. we talked about the three the first three stop motion animated films of director Henry Selick. Kind of talked about how he came to be and the influence he's had on the industry. That came out about a week and a half ago. So you can check that out wherever podcasts are available. Also have, I think my latest written thing is my review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Nice.
Yep. Good movie. Like to think it was a decent review. You can find that was for the Film Yap.
Yeah.
Mostly write for the Film Yap. You can find them at filmyap.substack.com. And you can find my weird takes on things on Twitter at Not So Handy Andy.
Nice. Well,
I just like
welcome-
to. Second Odd Trilogies. Amazing podcast. I think Logan and I do have complete opposite taste in movies, though.
I can see that. Yeah.
Whatever. If he likes something, it's like guaranteed I don't like it, and vice versa every time. So it's always an entertaining listen for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I do. I love that podcast. You guys do a really good job.
Guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this before, but like just the concept of it is just something I just really like also. So good job.
It's a concept we didn't think would last us this long, but it's the premise that keeps on giving, I guess.
Nice.
You're killing it.
Nice. Yeah, and I'll put links to all that in the show notes as well. Guys, do you want us to get into our reviews for the evening?
I suppose we should.
All right, awesome. As I clear my throat again, by the way, when I played the theme music, for some reason, I don't know why, but I had this sudden urge to, and this is so lame and it's stupid for an audio podcast, but I had this sudden urge to try to elicit a reaction from you guys by like raising the roof while it was going. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But yeah, I did not drink a lot of caffeine today. So, all right, we are going to start off by talking about our feelings toward the new Rian Johnson film, Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery. Of course, we're going to do a non-spoiler and spoiler review. I'll play a clip from the trailer to switch over to the spoiler review, but of course, in the show notes, there are timestamps to navigate around that. But the premise, according to IMDb, is famed Southern detective Benoit Blanc travels to Greece for his latest case. Of course, it's written and directed by Rian Johnson. It stars Daniel Craig, Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, Catherine Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Kate Hudson, and Dave Bautista. So guys, what did you think? First of all, what were your guys' feelings on Knives Out a couple of years ago? And then how did you feel about Glass Onion? Andy, do you want to get us kicked off?
Sure. I love Knives Out. I mean, I think a lot of people do. That's not a controversial or unpopular take. I think it's awesome. I was somebody who was not really all that intrigued by whodunits prior to that. I thought, for the most part, a lot of them were played out, not so great, a lot of cliches and tropes, and I just thought Rian Johnson kind of took a lot of those trappings and stylings of that genre, and like rather than like kind of hide from them or avoid them, he kind of just embraces them but makes something new and fun out of them. And it's just a really not surprising but like refreshingly modern whodunit. So I was very excited for this one.
Nice. Mitch, how did you feel about Knives Out?
Yeah, I am pretty much right there with Andy. I've always enjoyed Rian Johnson's movies. I mean, I wouldn't say like he's like my favorite modern director or anything, but like I have enjoyed basically everything he's done. And I thought Knives Out might be that, between that and Brick, those were probably my two favorite movies of his.
Nice.
I mean, they're just incredibly fun cast. I mean, that's like half the appeal to me. It's just you're watching a really awesome cast that like he really shrewdly picks them too. It's like a lot of actors that you love but you don't see all the time, like your Don Johnsons and like Keith Stanfield and stuff. So you're watching a really great cast, just kind of playing like smarmy rich assholes, and like that's really fun. So they're very comedic, and like Andy said, that a lot of the directing and the humor has some really modern sensibilities without being too cutesy about it. Yeah, and they're really smart and clever scripts as well. The mysteries are genuinely tantalizing, I guess you could say. So I really enjoy Knives Out.
Nice, absolutely. I do as well. I think I rewatched it before going to Glass Onion, and I think according to Letterboxd, it's like my 8th time watching that movie. It's like, it does not get tired for me, and I think that is a feather in the cap to the ensemble, the script, and of course, just Rian Johnson. His fingerprints are all over it. It's his baby and everything, but. Something that I just love about Rian Johnson movies, like Mitch, what you were saying, is that he does take, like, he will take something that is maybe not that interesting or not that, appealing or anything, like whether that's, a like a noir story, a mystery whodunit, a Star Wars, something that kind of sucks, but and then make it really good. I had to get a dig at Star Wars. I'm sorry, but no,
I'm all for it.
Yeah. But yeah, he always does something so unique and so interesting, and him going into doing this like mystery whodunit thing, it was so refreshing and so intricately plotted and everything, and I really liked it. So going into Glass Onion, especially after rewatching Knives Out, I went into it thinking, okay, Knives Out is something truly special, and I don't anticipate him reaching that. Like, I assume that he is going to do a great job with Glass Onion, but he has set the bar for himself so extraordinarily high with Knives Out. I can't expect it to reach that height, but for the most part, I really, really enjoyed Glass Onion. To kind of give an overall kind of thought, it is just, I mean, I don't know if it'll have the staying power with me of Knives Out, but it is, for me, a very, very entertaining and just really, really well told mystery story with another great ensemble. That it just, I want Rian Johnson to make these movies for as long as he can, because it's just, he's really hit a rhythm with this particular brand, and it works really well. So what did you guys think in kind of broad terms and non-spoilers of Glass Onion, and then we can kind of get into the nitty-gritty with it.
I can give my kind of brief thoughts. I thought Glass Onion was a blast. I really enjoyed myself watching it. It's pretty much like, if you enjoyed the first movie, I mean, this is that, but more. It's an amazing cast. Again, he's just found a cast that like almost had me more intrigued than the cast he had in the first one.
Yeah.
The humor really works. I think we get Daniel Craig like hamming it up like even more. And then he was in the first one. He seems to really be having fun with the character. And that was almost my favorite part, just his really goofy dialogue and that he has, and especially his chemistry he has with Janelle Monáe in particular. I just thought they were so much fun together. If I have like this is like a really mild criticism, but it is one that it like holds me back from like it maybe being my best of the year, or up with my best of the year, which is, I do think it's like, this is this exact same structure as like the first movie. And I know you could say that probably about most whodunits, right? They have these very kind of backloaded plots, and and they're structured very similarly, right? It's like a genre. However, I would say that like even kind of like the humor is very similar in this one, which is pretty much this very broad satire of like rich people, aren't they horrible? And I agree, but it's like it is just kind of that again. The setting is different enough this time around, and some of the conflicts between the characters are different enough this time around that like on a moment to moment basis, I was having so much fun. I do wonder if like he made when the third one comes out and it's kind of like if it had kind of the similar social critiques and kind of the similar plot structure. I'm wondering if I would start to feel like kind of a diminishing returns. But like as it stands, I mean, it is a lot of fun. I can't imagine enjoying Knives Out and not enjoying this. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, especially there is a little bit of I have full faith that Rian Johnson with the third one will do something unique and different, obviously, but there are some similarities for the first one here in the second one. Andy, what did you think of Glass Onion?
Yeah, I agree with Mitch on just about every point. I thought it was awesome. I think like, I mean, if I gave them both like the same, letterbox rating, 4.5 out of 5. I do think I like Knives Out just, that much better, just a hair better. Maybe if only just because it was, the first one and was more fresh in that sense. And like Mitch said, this one is repeating a lot of the same bits and pieces, although it is, exploring slightly different conflicts and obviously setting, like Mitch said. But I think the thing that like made this work for me, basically, essentially on paper, just as well as Knives Out, was the shift from like the family unit of the first one to kind of these business associates that call themselves friends. In this one, it just changes the stakes a little bit, I guess. I mean, obviously the first one, there were characters capable of and intending to murder, but I don't know, with most of the characters being related somehow, it was a little bit more like, oh, this is kind of a low stakes game of, who's the guilty party and that sort of thing. And this one is more like any of these people could kill any of these other people and get away with it. Like, because they're not that closely connected. With the kind of bigger playground of this island mansion, and the more kind of modern aesthetic of it, I think it was able to play in some new territory that was really fun. I thought the entire cast was a blast. I don't know that most of the characters are like maybe as memorable as the was it the Thromby family in the first one, but they're just as diverse and funny and off the wall. I think there are more Blanc-isms in the first one, like memorable lines of Daniel Craig just like chewing the dialogue in his southern accent, but he's still having so much fun, like Mitch said. And I think he and Rian Johnson have both said that like they will keep making these movies as long as it's fun for both of them. And they seem to be having a blast, and so am I. And like you guys kind of said, I could see where if a third one stays on this pace and doesn't make a more significant change to the formula, my enjoyment might start to decline. But I also feel like, I mean, even as much as I love Rian Johnson and have expected to love like the last 3 or 4 movies of his that I've seen because I love him, he still surprises me every time and impresses me in a way that somehow I wasn't expecting to be impressed. So I feel like certainly in a third one, he's going to come up with something to make it feel new and different. And there I'll be slapping the 4.5 out of 5 again. Like, damn it, Ryan, you did it again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting to me that both movies, they do, like, their ensemble is this close-knit, to an extent, kind of connected group. And something you touched on is that, you know, obviously this group is more like entrepreneurial or business minded. They're business connections rather than a family. And so that it paints a picture to where anyone is capable and has the motive to do something criminal to this group. And that's an interesting kind of not necessarily twist on the Knives Out formula, because Knives Out was just there was a crime that took place, and then we got an explanation for it pretty early, but like everyone had their own motives and everything. And then this is just kind of, as the kids say, it hits a little different because there's a lot more emphasis on the interconnected or interpersonal conflicts among like the different members of the group. And I like the way that it plays with the loyalty that they have that's built off of their, you know, prosperity and everything. And I thought that was an interesting angle, but I also do agree that the Blanchisms were not as prevalent in here. Like, the title kind of bakes into it its own like donut hole kind of thing, but it's not as memorable as the whole donut hole thing from the first one, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how much we want to get into the actual mystery and everything, but once we get the criminal act, I guess, it really ramps up the drama a lot. But there's also, I'm not going to say that because I'll save that for spoilers, because that's definitely a big spoiler. But let me back up a little bit and just ask what was memorable for you guys about this new ensemble. Like, I felt that the group wasn't quite as, they weren't as endearingly obnoxious as the Thrombies were, because the Thrombies, they were all just out of touch buffoons, and they still had like it had that feel of like going home for Thanksgiving with your annoying family, whereas this is going to like your 10-20 year high school reunion with your annoying classmates kind of thing. So there was a little bit of a lack of an endearing quality to them, but I liked them. How'd you guys feel about the ensemble and how they work together?
Well, you know, to me, I thought this is kind of like a testament to having like assembling a cast this amazing, because honestly, like when you think about the distinct characters, almost all of them are like pretty broad caricatures. You know, there's not a ton to them. There is like some interesting relationship dynamics in terms of like their past that they've had together. However, you know, you could pretty much describe everybody pretty succinctly like in a sentence, you know, and like Dave Bautista is kind of this Joe Roganite, like brociopath sort of character. And
I love that.
and then you have, and then, you know, you obviously have like Edward Norton playing you can't even, the one-to-ones are so almost too on the nose, like with, like I said, the Joe Rogan, like Edward Norton being like an Elon Musk. Yeah. Right. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he, I think, seemed to be having like the most fun out of the non Benoit Blanc characters. I thought Edward Norton was really fun. Dave Bautista is like pretty fun. He's kind of doing one thing. Catherine Hahn, I mean, she's just incredible. I feel like you can give her anything and she's gonna run with it. You know, she can do a lot with very little. I think some of I was so excited to see Kate Hudson. I hadn't seen her in a long time, and I kind of was like a little underwhelmed with Kate Hudson. I sort of feel like you get everything there is to know about her pretty fast. But she is the butt of some pretty funny jokes later in the movie that I enjoyed. But yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I think the cast is half the reason to see this movie is just watching them play these jerks and squabble with each other. I mean, we are literally an hour into this movie before anything plot related even happens. And I do think that is a bit of a fault of the movie, but again, it just shows how fun it is just to watch charming movie stars just stand around and squabble. Like, it's very entertaining. It's not really until something happens when you're like, oh, now the story's starting. We've been here for an hour. But yeah, so I mostly love their dynamic.
Nice. Yeah. Andy?
Yeah, I think you guys are kind of tapping into the key thing that makes the ensemble like still really fun, not quite as like engaging. And I think it's just that they're all more kind of, they're modern analogs to something else. Like they're archetypes of some person you've been seeing in headline. You can look at any of these characters and point to some real life celebrity and be like, yep, that's a parody of that. And they're great parodies, great satires of those things. I mean, it's shocking how well Elon Musk has been setting up all the jokes in this movie for the last month or two unknowingly. And of course, Rian Johnson made this movie a year or two ago. So it's like these parallels are just writing themselves, I guess.
Dare
I
I
think,
say that it's almost as if Elon Musk is a joke himself?
Yeah.
Well, right.
Possibly.
It's like, it just shows you that to me, I kind of just, when I thought, like, this is so timely, it's ridiculous. But then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, there's always a billionaire buffoon like this. Like, this guy has always existed. And Elon Musk just happens to be, the current one. And he just happens to really be kind of humiliating himself on a large scale right now.
This kind of annoying billionaire has always existed. I'm right here. The owner of the Obsessive Viewer is right here.
I'm so sorry. You're the exception.
Thank you.
To the rule, of course.
Thank you.
He's a cool billionaire.
You use your power for good.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, Andy, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Sorry.
I did. I related to Mitch's note about Kate Hudson because I don't know what it was exactly, but at some point, like maybe halfway through the movie or in the last act or something, it felt like a lot of the kind of insert shots of her reactions to things, her acting was like just shy of like convincing me of the moment. Like when she'd scream or gasp, and I know part of her character is like being this super kind of fake, phony, spineless person. They're all spineless, all the characters. Spoilers. But yeah, I don't know. Something about her performance late in the movie, and also the movie kind of stops focusing on her as other characters become more important, which I think just adds to or emphasizes the fact that maybe her performance wasn't quite there in every moment. But I still thought she was really fun, and it was, it's not like I was, rolling my eyes every time she came on screen or anything. It was just like oh, that's weird in a movie this tight and, high standard and everything. It was like just little moments where I was like, oh, maybe they needed another take on that one. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And she is more of the I think her character poster calls her the wild card, and she kind of seems like, if we are to do like a 1-to-1 with the first Knives Out, she's like the Toni Collette character. She doesn't really, I don't know if I'd say she doesn't really fit in with the group, but she is more like she's so much more as the kids say, extra. And she is just
You're
like,
really hip, man. You're
I-
really on the
you know,
pulse with these kids.
I really am.
that.
I'm not based. I'm definitely I'm definitely
Kids don't say base.
yeah. Okay, yeah. I don't even know what that
That's
means.
just Redditors. We're all in their 40s.
Right. My kids don't know who Lil B is, or my former students. Sorry, I don't have kids.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I taught middle school for the audience out there.
Yes. But she was kind of the more heightened character, and it didn't. I don't know. I feel like on repeat viewings, she's not gonna have like she's not gonna have the like longevity of like Toni Collette's character in Knives Out, which is maybe not fair because Toni Collette is freaking Toni Collette, but kind of in that same vein. Dave Bautista, his character, and I think that, like, I love that, what was it, Brociopath? That is such a great descriptor, but I do feel like with some of these characters, if not maybe the majority of them, they are those archetypes, and it's to a disadvantage a little bit because, like, Dave Bautista, it's explained that, like, oh, he's this men's rights activist guy, like douchebag guy, but we don't really see any of that. Like, that's just kind of explained to us, and then unless I missed something, like, there's nothing really. Well, I mean, I guess the beginning.
He walks around with a gun.
It's really, I think all the characters get their like little vignette at the beginning where you kind of see them in their own habitat.
That's
that's supposed to kind of carry you through. But I get what you mean. It's like there's a lot of, you get a little morsel of what this archetype is supposed to be, but then it's not until like an hour later that some character's like, oh, didn't you know about what happened to him this time? Like, he's been doing,
Yeah.
So I get what you mean that the character's kind of just being explained to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they don't seem to have as much room to really play with the like archetypes of them the way that the Thrombies did, because those were all like like that's a family dynamic kind of thing, and this is a little bit different. But yeah.
I do think too, like, a family dynamic. Just again, like, obviously this movie, I want to preface this, like, the movie is still really fun and the dynamic is still really fun. But I do think, like, just like a family dynamic, like the kind of what's at stake, the initial stakes of that family in the first one is a lot more compelling than I think.
Yes.
We're all gathered on an island. Why are we here? Which is fun, but it's, in the first one, obviously, it's like the inheritance that all these really greedy rich people, and that just obviously just on the face of it, I think a more compelling and like kind of ripe setup.
Yeah, it's inheritance versus like coattails, basically. Yeah, and do we want to say anything else in non-spoilers, or do you guys want to dive into spoilers here in a second? Because there's some stuff I really want to kind of dive into with the spoiler chat.
We can jump in.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So before we do that, just around the horn, what was your Letterboxd rating? Andy, you said 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mitch, how about you?
I'd be a 4 out of 5.
Nice. I gave it 4.5 as well. And we're going to go ahead and go into spoilers for Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, which is in theaters for 1 week this week. And then in December, it's going to be on Netflix. That is lame. Let's talk about that for just a second, since it's non-spoilers.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I think we're just going to see more and more decisions like that from Netflix as they kind of try and stretch the importance of streaming over going to the movies. I don't know.
And I forgot that the first one is not Netflix. That's why I think I was so confused, because I was like, the first one was like a hit in theaters, it was like a really sizable hit. And
this one's going to be a hit on Netflix.
That's right. The streaming numbers that we don't know.
Right.
Those mysterious numbers.
Yeah. I think my whole thing is the it's a mystery. Like it's a whodunit. Like, if they have it in theaters and then people talk about it online, it's going to be ruined for people that wait for Netflix. So I don't know. It's just that makes me a little nervous, but we don't have that problem, obviously. But it's a little whatever. At least they are putting it in theaters, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and go into spoilers for Knives Out, or for Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. If you want to skip the spoiler section and go to our review of Smile, check the show notes for timestamps, which once again are at obsessiveviewer.com/OV386. And so here we go with the trailer for Glass Onion.
I've invited you all to my island. Hi. Because tonight, a murder will be committed. My murder.
Once you're dead, will we still be able to talk to you?
Yeah, I'm not playing dead the whole weekend, dude.
This is truly delightful.
Across the island, I've hidden clues. You will have to closely observe each other. If anyone can name the killer, that person wins our game. Any questions?
Halle Berry, that has a kick.
Oh my God, what happened?
So, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, is in theaters for 1 week on Netflix. Blah blah blah. The first thing I want to talk about is we didn't touch on this, but it's been circulating. It has been bandied about in the media that we get a little slice of Benoit Blanc's home life, and also a big part of this movie is the pandemic, and we'll talk about that. But how'd you guys feel about that peek at Benoit Blanc's life at home?
I was pleasantly surprised by it. I kind of thought Benoit Blanc might just be this kind of figure that we only see in the field in this series. But I don't know. I always, my little nerd self gets excited about like world building and stuff in anything, even when it doesn't matter. So I liked the the moments we got to see Benoit in his home during the pandemic in his like lowest state. But also the reveal of his partner. I can't remember his name, but he's played by Hugh Grant. That 100% went right over my head that they were partners, and I hadn't seen Rian Johnson's quote that he'd given to some interview where he'd said, yes, Benoit Blanc is absolutely gay. And, thinking about it after the fact, it was like, yeah, that was entirely the point of that scene and obvious, and I'm an idiot, but I was not paying attention. And I was just like, oh, he's got this like baker butler guy who's hanging out in an apron answering doors for him.
I will say, like, I don't if I had not seen that headline and just kind of subconsciously like registered in my brain, I don't know if I immediately would have been like, yes, we have finally met Benoit Blanc's partner. Just because sometimes, I don't know, when they kind of make this press, whenever there's like preceding press about a character being gay before the release of a movie, I feel like I can almost guarantee that I'm like, it's barely going to be present. I don't know why I think that, but not that this is like a Disney movie or anything, but I just, again, had no problem with the execution of it, but I can see why that would like go over like anyone's head. And personally, I'm right with you. There with you. Like, I was delighted by the glimpse we got into his personal life. I loved him being kind of like he's almost like, he's like what I imagine like Batman or like I don't know, like the Punisher or something, like when they're out of bad guys to like to go, they're just like, there's no more mysteries, I'm just like moping in my bathtub. And I thought that was really funny, and I would have loved to see a little more of the dynamic between him and like Hugh Grant's character. I hope that's like explored more in further sequels.
Me too. And as someone who I was pleasantly surprised as well, and I feel like an idiot because I did not pick up on it as him being his lover or anything. I also thought that he was like an assistant or butler or something.
Well, I swear there's some line in there, like Benoit Blanc refers to him as like his assistant or something along those lines that made it sound to me like, oh, it's a butler.
I think
when he's talking to the Janelle Monáe's character. or
Oh
something.
yeah. Okay. I think for me it was, I think in the beginning, the first line that he says about that, he references him as saying like, "Oh yeah, Philip has been wanting me to get out of the bathtub," or something like that. And for some reason,
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't connect it, but it was. I love that as a bit of stunt casting, and I think it's a lot of fun. And I do hope that they explore it a little bit more. Because I like you, Andy, I really love the kind of world building, the little like bits and pieces there. But
Maybe Hugh Grant gets kidnapped in the third one.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
So let's talk about the actual mystery and everything. First of all, I do want to mention one of my favorite like sight gags in the movie was when they're all showing up for the boat, and then Kate Hudson comes in and she's wearing this mesh face mask.
Oh yeah,
It's like
they don't address it. It's just
so great.
that is the gag.
Yeah, I really loved that. But the mystery plays out after, like you guys said, about an hour into the movie, Dave Bautista just gets killed, which was a surprise to me because they had spent, like we said, they had spent about an hour setting everything up and setting up the characters, setting up their different, motives and everything, without telling us what the crime is. Like, I kept thinking
Right.
like, oh, Janelle Monáe is going to get murdered because she's the one that everyone is focused in on, and like she has a problem with everyone, and they have a problem with her because they're loyal to him, all of this stuff. And then suddenly it's just like, oh yeah, the dude with the crotch gun gets whacked.
Yeah.
All right. So what did you guys think of the build up toward the mystery and the mystery itself?
Yeah, I do think that a little bit. I mean, I thought the mystery was really fun. I was completely blindsided by Janelle Monáe being like a twin, and that would almost be like too outlandish.
Mm-hmm.
But they the way they played it out was really fun, and then it adds all of these layers, between because when Daniel Craig like sheds a tear when she dies, I'm like, okay, like you've known her for 20 minutes, and
Right.
but then obviously you go back and they reveal their kind of their backstory, and they have this amazing chemistry together, and all totally worked for me. I do think sometimes honestly in both Knives Out movies, and I think this is just how a lot of whodunits are, and I maybe just don't love how they do this. They're just very backloaded, where it's like, okay, now let me explain everything that was actually really happening, like everything that was behind the scenes of what you were watching.
The movie was deliberately leading you astray all this time just so they could tell you, oh no, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's clever, but like sometimes I'm almost like, this is too clever. If this
well, I think the like needle that has to be threaded in that kind of structure is like, you have to put all or almost all of the pieces there that I could have feasibly figured it out on my own, and I just didn't because you were misdirecting me. You were focusing my attention on something else. It's like a magic trick. Like if you're watching the right part, you can see how it's done, but the real trick is getting people to not look at that part. So like, and there is a lot of that thinking back. There are a lot of things that get set up that the movie literally kind of in montage explains to you were set up. But there is a little bit of that disconnect of like, oh, well, of course I didn't guess that because you just kind of told me that everything is entirely different from how I thought it was happening. Like it feels like a cheap shot. But again, I'm speaking in exaggerated terms just to make a point, because I do think the structure really works for the most part, and I think as far as like actually plot reveals, this one's done mostly really well in a really entertaining way. I think honestly for me, my biggest issue with that, like that kind of, oh, let's actually reveal everything is wrong. The way it's done in this, there's like, I swear it's like a half hour, like a 30-minute, maybe 40-minute chunk of the movie is retelling the story because you're learning new things, and it's just like after a certain amount of time, I was like, when they came back into the current moment, I was like, Jesus Christ, we just spent like the last 30 minutes in a flashback. What?
Yeah.
I lost track of time, and it was like, good Lord.
It
And so it was a little
fun while
momentum.
you're watching it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like it's a fun flashback and everything, but it does feel like Rian Johnson almost succumbs to that sequelitis thing where like Knives Out had Ana de Armas had her whole flashback and backstory that showed us exactly what happened to Harlan Thrombey, and then we get back into the moment, and she's then appointed as Benoit's own Watson. And then here we have the same thing, like the same skeletal structure, basically, but it is vast, like it is much more intricate and much bigger. And it just feels like if the third movie has something like that, I will be very, very like concerned.
Another kind of downtrodden woman kind of helping him out to get back at all these people, which worked really well the first 2 times. But how many times can this happen to Benoit Blanc where he just like meets the right person and
but
there's a little like almost like I feel like it's a little overblown at the end where she's like walking away from the flames. And it's like very dramatic. There's kind of like a really intense like Yas Queen sort of energy going on, which is fine. But I like at like one point I'm like, am I watching like a music video right now? Because the rest of the movie, it felt very bombastic.
Yes.
In a way that like the rest of the movie is like not necessarily like that. But again,
that whole sequence where stuff's blowing up and everybody's like trying to flee the room as things are exposed. It's like this is coming out of a different movie. Like,
it felt like
all the slow-mo and
it's like, okay, Janelle Monáe is now like almost like an action hero, and there's like pyrotechnics, like stuff blowing up everywhere, and it's like, I mean, I guess it is the sequel. You're right, like Matt, when you're like the sequelitis, it's just like we have to go way bigger, and I was like, maybe
slow it down
a little. Yeah, I don't know.
It also made me a little bit not uncomfortable, but it made me like second guess like where they were going for the finale there, because Blanc is just like, okay, it's very clear, like he gives her the whatever it is, and he's like, just remember what she wanted, or what she wanted from him, or something like that, and then I'm sitting there thinking, like, they mentioned the Hindenburg, like, is she gonna murder all of these people? Like, and is Benoit Blanc just gonna be standing outside? And so it was a little unclear, like, what it was gonna be. But then
that would be hardcore.
And that's a whole because I mean, she had no idea what it would, like, how it would play out. So she just throws this highly combustible gas into the air ducts and just like is like, well, it'll piss them off and make them shit themselves. Like,
it is a little like it does have a little bit of that like like comic book movie energy. And you know what I mean? Like, this is like, I don't know, like the equivalent of like the big blue beam in the sky in a superhero movie. Where it's like, we don't know what it does, but it's powerful.
But it's bad.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
It's like the 3rd or 4th Death Star, and then they they throw the highly combustible thing in the air vent and it blows up. But yeah, so I did like how it tied back to it being about like, oh, he's gonna be referenced alongside the Mona Lisa because his creation just destroyed it, and it is that kind of just desserts kind of thing that is satisfying. It's not. It's bigger because it's the sequel, but it's not as emotionally satisfying to me as a viewer as that just amazing scene with Marta on the balcony with the mug with her fingers covering the 2 things, so it just says "My House," and like that's a perfect image to end on for Knives Out. Here it's fine, but
it is funny to compare how like subdued. The
Yes.
first ending is just like a girl holding a cup of coffee compared to what we get in this one.
Yes.
Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so there's a big effort in this movie in terms of the conflict and the interpersonal dynamics of these people, that they are kind of, they're not completely leeching off of Edward Norton's character, but they are riding his coattails. They are loyal to him because of like what he's able to provide for them with his wealth and everything. And it's an interesting dynamic to play with an ensemble, with an ensemble that are at the center, is going to be at the center of a murder plot and everything. So yeah, I don't really have a question for that. How'd you guys feel about that? The way that they kind of intermingled with each other, and the flashbacks as well.
Wait, are you asking about, sorry, are you asking about like how the characters intermingle with each other?
Yeah, like their backstory, the backstory of the disruptors and how they all came together, like how they all kind of have their own separate kind of things that they're successful because of him, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked that angle of this group. I mean, you know, like the first one had, okay, they're a family unit, but they all kind of secretly hate each other.
Yeah.
And this, I liked the whole disruptors thing, that like this Elon Musk figure, who kind of had something over each one of these people, kind of created this pretend sense of brotherhood and loyalty. And yeah, it's us against the world, man, because we tell it like it is and we're real, and like none of them believe it about any of the others except maybe themselves. And like even at that point they like kind of know they're lying to themselves, because that's what billionaires are actually like in real life. But like I enjoyed, I think that the cluster and the archetypes in this is almost like maybe more successful or more fun as like social satire than the first one. The first one's still great in that regard, but this one is just that much more kind of potent, kind of on the nose, but not in an annoying way, more in like a yeah, they're really telling it, you know. And so I think in that regard, like the commentary of this one was maybe a little bit stronger even than the first one, even if maybe like the actual characters or emotional stakes weren't quite as high as the first one.
Well said. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I'd agree. I like the backstory. I mean, it kind of gives them all like the exact same motivation for why they would, you know what I mean, like want to kill Edward Norton's character, or you know what I mean, like they all kind of have the exact same motivation, which is like, if something happens to that person, like that's literally all I have. Is that like my success is like hinging upon them still being a billionaire, still having power. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Didn't even notice, even though I've seen this movie 100 times, that in that flashback sequence, Edward Norton's character is in Tom Cruise's exact get-up in the movie Magnolia. I think I was too distracted by the hairpiece that Dave Bautista had on in that. And that scene that I could not. But like that is a hilarious, obviously like ridiculous reference that I think.
That was great.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And I loved seeing Edward Norton in a role where he's like clearly having fun. He has this presence to him. Like he has like a reputation, I guess, for being kind of difficult and everything. And he hasn't been in a lot of stuff recently that I've really been into, aside from I haven't even been into his Wes Anderson stuff that he's been in. But
there was the modern classic Motherless Brooklyn.
Oh, Jesus.
You missed that one?
No.
Okay.
I remember I saw that movie. Me and Tiny went and saw the movie. We went to a screening of it. We were both excited, cautiously, because he and I in high school were huge Edward Norton fans, as any young man who saw Fight Club and thought that it was profound was.
naturally.
Yeah, and so we had heard about his attempts or his desire to adapt Motherless Brooklyn, and we were like, oh my god, he's going to play a guy with Tourette's, and he's a detective and stuff. Oh, it's going to be amazing. And then like 20 years later, 15 years later, he comes out with it, and it's just a massive turd. So, yeah. Anyway.
Never caught that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's no, it's not good. But so it was good to see him, and good to see him play this Elon Musk-esque buffoon. And even I would say probably one of my favorite moments in the entire movie is when Blanc just instantly, like immediately, just takes all the fun away from his whole murder mystery, and he says every detail of it. I thought that was just perfect. I really loved it, and the look of disappointment and sadness on Edward Norton was great. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, anything else that you guys want to talk about in spoilers for Glass Onion? Anything that we haven't touched on?
No,
I mean, I'm sure I could talk for several more hours about it, but we can also talk in circles.
Right.
Yeah. That about covers it for me.
Yeah, I did pose this question to you guys. It was a kind of a weird thought that I had, but do you see, and we'll go through this conversation again, I guess. Do you guys foresee a situation where Ryan Johnson gives Benoit Blanc his own like Moriarty? Like, is there room in this franchise for a character that is like diabolical and actually a formidable opponent to Blanc? And how would that fit with the kind of overall aesthetic of this and tone of this series?
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I mean, that's kind of the appeal, I think, of creating this new character. Someone like Benoit Blanc is like kind of the implied history that this character comes with, right? Like Daniel Craig is like middle-aged. He's world-renowned, and within his fictional universe, obviously, and just that implies that there's this like incredibly rich history that we aren't privy to. So, I mean, it's pretty much, that's what I think is so awesome about this concept, is really the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to, what you want to show this character, like in terms of their history. And obviously, like, you'd probably have a field day kind of casting his version of Moriarty.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely room for it, and I'd be all for it. You'd have to find some kind of different entry into that, just because everything so far about this series has been like classic mystery with a twist. So there's like got to be some twist to it that I'm not going to even try to like anticipate.
Right.
Another thing that I would love to kind of see from these movies, or in a future movie that I really only thought of once we started talking tonight. I going back earlier when we were mentioning how, both films he comes across this woman who's kind of like the secret weapon in the thing, and she ends up kind of really ultimately kind of solving the thing at the end of the day. And like, I think that's part of the point that Ryan Johnson's trying to do with both of these movies. So I wouldn't be surprised if that trend continues. But at the same time, I'd almost kind of love to see a story or a mystery where like Benoit Blanc does kind of have his back up against the wall, and it's kind of him against everything else, and he doesn't necessarily have somebody to turn to, or maybe that somebody he turns to ends up expanding the world of Benoit Blanc outside of this case, kind of like, his partner in this did. So that would be interesting to see in a future one where it's like he doesn't find that in the group, and it's more up to him to kind of figure things out all by himself.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. My kind of final thought on Glass Onion is that I just imagine, I imagine Kenneth Branagh spending all of his time recently doing Agatha Christie
Poirot.
stuff.
Yeah.
Hercule Poirot.
Yes. Like seeing Knives Out and then seeing Glass Onion and just being like, motherfucker. Because I don't know how you guys feel about his
Dude,
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh's like big studio work. I mean,
Mhm.
like anytime it's like a major studio movie and not one of his kind of like more passion projects, they're typically abysmal.
Bad.
Oh,
Yeah. They're real bad. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate because I have a lot of respect for the guy,
Mhm.
but I mean, I haven't
But
even
I also don't.
yeah, but I haven't even seen the Poirot movies, so maybe
Oh,
I
yeah.
shouldn't be like just slamming them. But like from what I have seen, just just the trailers alone. I remember that one with like the Imagine Dragons song playing in the background and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It looks so bad. And I hate the look of those movies
Mhm.
too. They're just like weirdly glossy. They have this like you know what I mean?
Sterile.
Yeah.
So sterile. That's the best way to put it. They look like they were just like run through some Instagram filter. I just
Yes.
The whole movie looks like a poster. Like it
Yeah.
looks just airbrushed to shit, and yeah.
you know, there's like
Yeah.
Spider-Man posters people always give a bunch of crap for, like the MCU
The whole
Spider-Man.
movie looks like
That is, like the movie exists in with that aesthetic.
Yeah. I think the only one that I've seen is Death on the Nile. And it was fine, but it doesn't hold a candle to like the Benoit Blanc mysteries or anything. But I will
it's hard to
say,
be in a Poirot in a Blanc world.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess they're successful. So, I mean, at least it gives him it gives Branagh the opportunity to have enough champagne to fill the Nile. I'm so sorry. So,
Oh, man.
okay. So yeah, so that's our review of Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, currently in theaters for 1 week only, and then hitting Netflix on, I think it's December 23rd.
Jeez,
But
what a gap.
yeah, yep. So then to kind of wind down, we're going to do a review of Smile, a horror film directed and written by Parker Finn, starring Sosie Bacon, Jesse T. Usher, Kyle Gallner, and Cal Penn. We'll do again a probably brief non-spoiler section, then go into spoilers. But the plot summary, courtesy of IMDb, is: after witnessing a bizarre traumatic incident involving a patient, Dr. Rose Cotter starts experiencing frightening occurrences that she can't explain. Rose must confront her troubling past in order to survive and escape her horrifying new reality. This movie, I think, is still in theaters now, but it is also streaming on Paramount Plus. Guys, what did you think of Parker Finn's Smile and the movie he wrote and directed?
I had like a ton of fun with this movie, and maybe because
Nice.
my expectations were like super low. I mean, I watched this trailer several times before other movies and was like, it's the dumbest fucking trailer of like just the laziest scares, and you know, like the person's head at the the car window is like inexplicably flipping over, and it's like the trailer gives you no concept of like, how is this happening?
Yeah.
Why are these absurd things happening? It makes you feel like it's just gonna be a lazy studio horror movie, and I went in expecting that and came out genuinely enjoying it, and honestly a little bit creeped out by it. It's not like gonna give you nightmares or like linger in your brain for weeks or anything. It's not like The Exorcist or anything, but like I was genuinely, you know, entertained and on the edge of my seat, and actually appreciated kind of some of the thematic stuff that it's going for. I'll hold off on specifics for that, but I thought Sosie Bacon was really good. And I was shocked by like the strange direction it takes in its finale.
Yeah. Mitch, how did you feel about Smile?
Well, I also enjoyed it. I have to say that this is a weird one for me because I feel like this is a very generic movie that is directed with like surprising skill. That's kind of like what I took. I was like, this movie is beat for beat The Ring.
Yes.
It follows. There's like this malevolent, unstoppable force coming for this group of teens, and they've got to research it. And we're looking at the creepy newspaper clippings to find out what it is. And then, and I guess isn't a teenager in this case, but it's same difference, really.
Yeah.
But the actual direction of the movie, I found actually to be really effective. Like, I mean, just not to go super into it or spoilers, but there's the initial scene where we kind of see like the smile, with Sosie Bacon. And I just thought that the way like the camera movements and like these slow pans that they use over and over through the movie, I mean, they got me every time. I love kind of like the soft pastel, like color palette the movie has. And I mean, Sosie Bacon she was really, I was really impressed by her. I had never seen her in anything before. And
I don't think
crazy. I don't know how she even probably got the audition. That must have been really hard for her to kind of get her foot in the door. But she
came from nothing.
Yeah.
Now she's here.
She was really good. Sometimes I roll my eyes from like, Sosie Bacon's first
Scott
movie is
Eastwood.
the lead in like a big budget, studio movie or quote unquote big budget. But yeah, I just thought this was a really well directed movie with like a pretty predictable and generic script. And no spoilers. I don't think this is a spoiler to say that this movie is about trauma, and I'm getting a little burnout on horror movies that are about trauma. And I mean, we literally have scenes in this movie where people are like, it's trauma. The thing that's happening to you is trauma, and but that said, I actually thought this handled it pretty well. Like I'm pretty burnt out on that, but I found it pretty effective. If this came out like 3 years ago, I imagine I would have really been a little more impressed by kind of the angle they took with it. But,
a good rendition of a tired trope.
Yes. This is kind of a good rendition of a lot of tired tropes.
Right. It's a whole movie of tired tropes.
But I mean,
it does them well.
It is well done. This director Parker Finn, I think after seeing this, he's somebody who's like on my radar.
Yeah, I will agree with you guys for the most part. I will say that I definitely agree, Mitch, that the script is not quite there, and like that, it is extremely tired to go the whole trauma route and everything, and it is so on the nose in this movie that it's just, I think I made a slight mistake in that. I rewatched previous to watching this movie. I rewatched a few days before. I rewatched Malignant, which I think is phenomenal and absolutely amazing horror film. And then I went in and I didn't go into Smile like wanting to compare them or anything, and they're not very comparable or anything, but to go from something as unique and interesting as Malignant to something that is purporting, or not even purporting, but like where people are saying like, oh, it's a very unique thing, and have it to be just so repetitive of past movies. Like you said, It Follows and The Ring, it is basically, it feels like it's a pastiche of those movies. And my kind of big takeaway, the big thing that I really liked about it, and the big thing that I just was not interested in about it, the thing that I really liked was the gore and the visual effects of like a lot of the stuff that happens was pretty fun and in like it like adrenaline pumping and everything. But the thing that I didn't like is that it does that whole thing where it's like, oh, they have to, like you guys said, they have to go and research what's going on. They need to trace back what all happened, what's happened to lead up to this and everything. And I love that kind of like procedural aspect in these types of like horror movies. Like I live for that kind of thing. but this felt so hollow and empty in that regard. Like, it's like we are presented with something, and then they, like, the extent of their research is like, this same something has happened before numerous times, and there's a chain and everything, and it's like, okay, that's it. I don't know exactly what it's not like how It Follows was perfect in that regard, because that movie has so many different reads where it's about sexual trauma, it's about kind of loss of innocence, and like all of these different things. And then The Ring, which this also borrows from quite a bit, is about like a more like human kind of like mystery element that leads to that and everything. And with Smile, there's none of that, either of that. Like, it doesn't do any of that. It's just like, hey, this is a thing. All right, let's figure out what to do. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm basically just kind of like meh on the movie, but it does have quite a bit of quite good direction, and a lot of like interesting visual flares that were effective as jump scares and everything, but the script just wasn't there for me. So yeah.
I have a couple things I want to say in response to what you're saying, but I feel like maybe I should wait till
spoilers.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we can dive into spoilers here now if you guys want.
Sure.
I do want to say real quick that like the cast is really good. Like, I thought Sosie Bacon did a good job. Jesse T. Usher was great as well. I'm loving seeing Kyle Gallner pop up in like these horror movies and stuff. Like, he was in Scream this year as well.
Oh yeah.
And then Cal Penn, I was very pleasantly surprised to see him in it. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought the cast was pretty good.
Yeah, I love me some Kyle Gallner. It's cool seeing him in something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, we are going to go into spoilers for Smile. So I'm going to play a clip from the trailer, and then when we come back, we're going to be spoiling Smile. Check the show notes for timestamps, all that stuff. So here we go. Clip from the trailer for Smile.
You're going to die! You're going to die! You're going to die! You're going to die!
I found 20 cases involving 19 victims with a direct line linking them all together.
You said only 19. Why is it that everybody else who's seen it is dead and you're alive? I've seen it too.
You?
Get away from me! How long between each victim's death?
There is one thing I want to talk about in spoilers, and then we can kind of dive more into it. But as someone, and this is totally on brand for me, but as someone who bases his entire identity around being a cat owner, there was a very entertaining kind of thing that I kind of experienced where, okay, she comes home and there's a cat, and I'm like, oh, there's a cat, that's awesome. And then she like comes home again, and it's like, oh, the cat's back. And then she's like, like, okay, I'm feeding the cat, and I'm like, oh no, they're really emphasizing this cat. Like, okay, this is not going to be good. And then the cat goes missing, and then there was the moment where she's at the birthday party, and she's giving the present to the kid. The kid is about to open the present, and like, as this scene is unfolding, my mind is catching up to what the movie's doing. And like, I honestly had a moment where I was like, oh no. And then it happened, and I'm like, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. So that's my, like, I don't know what word I'm trying to say, but my required like cat moment for the movie. But yeah, so
required cat moments with Matt Hurt.
Yes.
A spin-off podcast.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yep.
I did really like that scene because
Yeah.
it reminded me almost of like an old David Cronenberg movie, like The Brood or Videodrome, where like something really fucked up happens in this big public setting, and everyone's just like, like,
Yeah.
I think that's really
Yeah.
Well, it was moments like that, and like the I don't know, monster mom at the end
Mm-hmm.
with all that shit, with it really kind of solidified this as such a weird, good time for me, even though, yes, it's generic, templated as fuck. Like, you know, it's stupid. You know, the way it's written is really kind of juvenile in a lot of places, but like, yeah, it's those moments where it goes the extra mile to be just kind of fucked up, or
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, that would be horribly jarring, or like, I am really uncomfortable right now because I did not expect that scene in a movie like this. That really kind of keep me so high on it.
Yeah.
I think too, like for me, this movie takes itself pretty seriously, and sometimes that's when I have like a harder time forgiving maybe some more generic elements. However, I felt very conflicted by the end of the movie. Matt, were you saying they were like researching and kind of, you said that's kind of catnip for you, no pun intended,
Yeah.
about in terms
Too soon,
of,
Mitch. Too soon.
Yeah, when they're trying to kind of find out, you know, what's going on behind this smile thing. And to me, I both like enjoyed the end in terms of, I loved the design of that smile monster. I mean, that was that was so gnarly. I thought that, just like with the rows of teeth and it has no skin.
They're like splitting open and
Yeah.
consuming.
That was super rad.
Mhm.
But I also kind of don't like how it felt the need to just kind of like actualize the, you know what I mean? Like to me, I was, the first half of the movie really had me, because I'm like, oh man, what if this is just some sort of ethereal thing that's sort of never fully explained? That's when I found it really creepy. Kind of like the ambiguity of like not quite knowing the rules behind this, or just knowing the vague rules, right?
Mhm.
Like these people who experience trauma or witness something. And then by the end, I'm like, oh, it's like a smile monster. You know, and to me, I mean, I loved the look of that, but also I was like, I don't know if we, like you said, Andy, it's like, it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, there is some kind of nuance to mine from it. I think like the kind of surface level thing is like, okay, it smiles because it's representative of trauma and everything. So and like, if you're in a bad place, you put on a fake smile and everything, but like, it's very, very just kind of just not shoehorned in, but very surface level there. But the movie does such a repeated effort in that first half hour to the first hour of the movie to have Rose be confronted with people who are minimizing like the patients in her psych ward, like the cop partner of Kyle Gowner's like, oh, you know, this woman was a head case and everything, and she's like, oh no, don't say that or whatever. And I feel like that's a thread that isn't fully explored. Like, I think it's more to just signal to us that like, okay, she has trauma in her past involving her mother having mental illness and everything, and dying as a result of it and everything. But I feel like there could have been more context or more social kind of context given to that and explored a little further. But I mean, maybe I'm just wanting something in it that the movie just wasn't wanting to provide. But I just feel like that was a weird thing to keep coming back to and then not really follow through on in terms of the overall representation of like psychiatric treatment and all that. I don't know. Did you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved your kind of pointing out, right? Like, sort of the expectation to sort of smile, right? Or just, you know, the kind of pressure we put on ourselves to kind of smile when maybe we really are internally feeling horrible. And that and that I think is I think that's like a really kind of effective metaphor for like mental health and trauma that this movie is clearly trafficking in. I do think too, there's just something really creepy about like a vacant stare, right? Like a vacant sort of like empty smile.
That uncanny valley look.
Yeah, I do think that there's not unfortunately, this is just one of those movies where any sort of nuance that could kind of be brought about, like regarding those themes, is kind of just blatantly explained in like every scene. But,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Just like said out loud by every single character. And it kind of like, I think, simplifies some of maybe the more interesting. To me, like what's kind of frustrating a little bit about this movie, even though I enjoyed it overall, is like you see the potential for like a great movie in here. And that's why I think this director is somebody who I like would keep an eye on, because I think he could make something really awesome down the road.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't know if maybe he was kind of pigeonholed by, you know, I don't know, producers or something. Like, I don't know if there was something that held him back, or if this is just the way he wanted to handle it. But it just seemed like something wasn't quite connecting for me throughout most of the run of the movie. So, yeah. Plus they killed a cat, so fuck this movie. But yeah, I thought there was something else. Oh yeah, the whole the subplot involving Jesse T. Usher as Rose's fiance.
Oh yeah,
that seems like kind of completely dropped entirely. Like, fine, yeah.
I think that was probably like the biggest kind of drag on the movie for me was him, and not his performance necessarily. Like, he was fine, but the character is just one of those like annoyingly kind of obtuse, uncaring, like he's caring until it like inconveniences him, and then it's like, and it's just like I get tired of those characters, because obviously they exist in real life, but like when they're in a movie, it feels like they exist purely to like generate conflict out of nothing. When it's like, this is Sosie Bacon's fiance, like he should be a little more supportive of this, or like it feels like they have to write a scene in a really convenient or convoluted way to like make it so that, oh, of course her fiance wouldn't trust her. And it's like, okay, whatever,
and
fine.
And there's even that line where she just directly tells him, and by extension tells us, that like, oh, you don't want to deal with anything that's too severe, or anything that could cause a problem for your perfect life and everything. And that's basically like the end of the relationship, basically. And I'm just like, come on, like, just employ just a little bit of subtlety here. It was a little bit of a drag.
Yeah, I think that was underdeveloped, because I do think that's an interesting concept. One that's actually explored like really well. If you guys have seen that movie Take Shelter with Michael Shannon. But essentially, like, where again the movie doesn't really flesh this out enough to make it compelling, but essentially where it's like your mental illness, right, can kind of presents a choice to like your significant other, where they can sort of like stand by you during this, or they can sort of abandon you. And obviously by abandoning you, they're like making your situation even worse, to kind of fend for this on your own. Fortunately, the movie, it just feels very underdeveloped. We don't really know enough about their past, you know, or their dynamic.
He just comes across as incredibly callous, because we don't see what they've been through together before. So it's like, it just feels like, oh, the moment she acts weird, like he is done with her. And it's like, and there is like that tiny bit where they're trying to imply, oh, he's been through this before, she's, you know, really put him through the ringer, but like, we don't get to see that. So
it's almost like one of those movies where the focus, they do such a great job kind of fleshing out Sosie Bacon's character, and like all the focus is so much on her that like all of the supporting characters kind of seem pretty thin by comparison. And part of it is because it's so much from her perspective. So I can understand that, but like the sister character and her husband, you know, and even Kyle Gallner, I like Kyle Gallner, but like I like never believed that they were in a relationship
No,
together.
me
You know what I mean?
neither.
They're like I couldn't, I couldn't live with like these feelings I had for you. I had to back away. It's like, and then get engaged and do the exact same thing you were afraid
Right.
of some other person. Like I didn't understand that, and I don't know. I never bought that they had this like history together. Although like again, I guess it really speaks to Sosie Bacon's performance that like her character, I really believed her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little dumbfounded in regards to Kyle Gallner's character of just like how much he was just like accessing these like police files and video footage. It's like, A, I don't believe that this guy has access to all of this, and B, like he could not just be like showing it to anyone anywhere at any time and not like get fired for it. There's got to be higher security protocols than that.
Well, Andy, talk to me when you're a police officer.
Yeah, right.
And then you don't know how it is when an ex-girlfriend comes to you about a malevolent smile demon.
I'm being unempathetic. Blue lives matter.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I used to be I used to be a security guard, and I'm actually getting a knock on the door. There's some whole history thing about the security guard thing, so I'm kidding. Anyway, so dumb, but
unexplained backstory.
Exactly. But I want to kind of mention here, and I know Mitch, you've got to go here in a second, but I want to like, even if to circle back to the whole mental illness thing and the trauma and everything, like it's an admirable thing that the movie kind of flirts with that. But then by the end of the movie, like, what statement is it making? Like, she gets, like, it just happens to her, and then Kyle Gallner is, like, the next in line because he sees it, and then, boom, movie over. Like, okay, fine. That just seems a little bit, I don't know, not really that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just taking the, like, sort of easiest path of just, like, well, see, this is the reality of things. This is how the world is. And it's like, it's not wrong, but it's also not necessarily insightful either.
Yeah.
I like a good bleak ending to a horror movie. Is it's always fun. I mean, this is like the exact ending of Drag Me to Hell, if you guys have seen that, where it's just the horrified look as, the love of your life is being consumed in flames. But yeah, I did find like the message pretty muddled by the end, and I wasn't like, I didn't think it was handling anything thematically like gracefully enough for me to like really want to like parse it out. I was just like, oh, that was a cool smile monster. Again though, I mean, it was a fun movie. It had some tropes that I think it relied on like a little too heavily, and also didn't need to be 2 hours long.
No, I agree.
2 hours.
I didn't really feel its length, but that's fair.
Yeah.
But I'm always the first to complain about any movie that's like over like 75 minutes and immediately cranky. So I
was looking through, like, I was trying to pick a movie to watch, and I was like, After Sun, I'm kind of excited about that. So maybe I'll look at that. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. This is like barely like over an hour and a half. Like, I'm game. I'm doing this. I'm watching this right now. So that made me happy. So to kind of wind down, kind of give overall thoughts on Smile. What did you rate it on Letterboxd? And then we can kind of wrap up. I think, Mitch, if you want, we can let you go after this. And then Andy, if you want to talk for a little bit after that, that's fine. But if not, whatever. No pressure, just on the recording. But but yeah, Around the Horn. What did you guys rate Smile? And I didn't mention this in the Glass Onion review, but is this going to make any top 10 lists or anything for you guys at the end of the year?
Smile, no. Glass Onion, maybe. I mean, it certainly has a better chance than Smile, which I still like. I mean, this is fun. Like, for a movie that like looked like just disposable C tier Blumhouse, I think this is a lot better than you would expect. And I think that's solely just because of like the directing and the lead performance from Sosie Bacon. And I would give this like a 3 out of 5, like a solid one thumb up, I guess, to use some Ebert nomenclature. But yeah, no, I liked it.
Nice. Andy, how about you?
Yeah, it's definitely not like gonna be in my top 10 or anything like that. I think right now it might be like sitting pretty at 20 something, which is pretty good. I really like this movie, I think, more than either of you. I think I currently, like, when I rated it on Letterboxd right after I saw it, I gave it a 4 out of 5, which is probably generous. But I was really riding a high after that movie. Like, I had a lot of fun with it. And I'll, just for the sake of it, I'll stand by 4 out of 5, at least until I watch it again and inevitably like bump it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was maybe only partially, or maybe mostly because of my low expectations. I really ended up enjoying it and thought it kind of had a lot of fun with its premise. And like Mitch has said multiple times, the direction of the rather bland material was surprisingly good.
Yeah, I'll agree with those sentiments. The movie didn't hit as hard for me as I would have liked it to, but I thought it was fine. I rated it 3 stars, and I don't know if I'll ever see it again, but it was fine in the moment, I guess. So, all right, that is our review of Smile, which again is available on Paramount Plus. We're gonna bid adieu to Mitch. If you want to, before you go, Mitch, first of all, thank you for joining us.
For the episode. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And if you want to give the listeners your home address, your social security number, all that stuff.
Yeah, pull that information out.
Or
just he's disconnecting.
Yep. Yeah. Or just where they can find you online.
Yeah, Midwest Film Journal. You can find me posting a review every week or two. On there, you can find me at Twitter at wounded_kite. And you can find me at Wounded Kite on Letterboxd. Yeah, if you want to hear more of my ranting about movies, that's where you can go. And
awesome.
Thank you, Matt and Andy. Nice talking to you. Have me on again sometime. Loved it.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
All right.
See
you guys.
See you.
Bye, Mitch.
All right. Now we can talk about Mitch, what we really think of Mitch.
Yeah, he's a 3 out of 5.
No, he's a good dude, but
yeah, we love Mitch.
Yeah. Okay, so I kind of want, like, I'm not going to keep you too long or anything, but usually, like, we haven't done what we call potpourri section on the podcast. So basically on a normal episode, we'll do like a kind of potpourri section where we'll talk about movies we've watched recently. And just, I figure we could both kind of throw one movie out each. So I don't know. Did you want to start? Let me introduce the potpourri section.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey guys, this is the potpourri section. It's the part of the podcast where we wind down and we basically how did we used to phrase it? It's the point of the episode where we wind down and we talk about movies that we've watched lately or things we're looking forward to. It's potpourri. It's whatever we want as long as it smells good. That was the tagline for it. So Andy, what is a movie that you'd like to bring up in a kind of brief, non-spoiler format for potpourri?
Sure. I just the other day saw The Menu,
Nice.
and ended up really enjoying that. I think it's just a kind of fun little like bottle concept where it's just like it all takes place in one location, and it's tense and it's funny, and there's like a little bit of kind of class social comment to it, but it doesn't get caught up in that. And just kind of, Ralph Fiennes is kind of the villainous figure, and he's super fun to watch, pick people apart. So that's one I saw that was I'd been seeing the trailers for like 6 months and
yeah.
was like, what is this movie going to be? And then finally saw it and I was like, you know what? That was damn fun.
Nice. I am looking forward to checking out the menu here pretty soon. I'm hoping to. The trailer looks pretty fun. It looks like it could be kind of I don't know. I love the way that the trailer intentionally doesn't give anything away, I presume.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to going into it and being surprised, hopefully in a good way. And I like the cast too. The cast is really good.
Oh yeah.
For my potpourri segment, I want to bring up this might be a sore subject. Bones and All. Yeah.
It's a good one to bring up with me on.
Yeah. So, first of all, like you were very gracious to give me a ride home after the screening.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you again. And
of course.
Yeah, but yeah, we don't have to get into all of that. But basically, Bones and All, it's in theaters this week. It opens this week. Yeah. It's a new movie from, oh God, I can't remember how to pronounce his name.
Luca, I think it's Guadagnino or something like that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think he's Italian.
That sounds he's Italian. And like, I'm not terribly familiar with his work aside from Call Me By Your Name. Which I wasn't really a big fan of Call Me By Your Name.
Okay.
Yeah, it just like people adored it, and I just kind of it was fine for me. And Bones and All kind of feels like that's in the same vein for me in terms of my reaction. Basically, it's about cannibals and a cannibal love story. And I'll just read quickly my Letterboxd review. Part of it. The love story at the heart of Bones and All is sweet enough and driven by strong chemistry between Chalamet and Russell. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically, it kind of feels there's some really intense stuff, but what I think is the detriment of the movie is that it creates this atmosphere of this atmosphere of like this world of people who have this cannibalistic urge, and as Taylor Russell's character is wandering and finds these people, it creates this like open idea of like the different types of people that like are in this group and everything, but it doesn't commit to it. Like there's this whole section where they run into or they meet oh God, Michael Stuhlbarg and another person. And that, like, the thing that's, like, explained for them, the world building of those two characters, is probably, for me, a little bit more interesting than almost anything else in the movie. And then nothing happens with them, so it kind of feels like, it kind of feels like they don't...
Missed opportunity.
Yeah, like there's, like, these threads that some come back and some recur and everything, and then comes out at the end, but it didn't really work for me. It just felt like the movie didn't really, it felt like he didn't really know where to take the movie, and where he does take it. Yeah. It just seemed a little bit expected.
Like he had a great concept and just wasn't sure where to go past the pilot episode.
Pretty much. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would love to compare notes with you on that film and talk about whether I agree or not, but had to the reason we were laughing earlier when you brought up the movies, because I had to excuse myself early on in the film due to we'll call it an adverse physiological reaction to an early bit of intimate violence in the movie, and made me feel sick as the occasional movie does. But I'll get back to it one day. It'll be my Everest.
Nice. And I will link. I'll put a link in the show notes to your Letterboxd list of the movies that have made you physically ill.
Oh yeah, it's a good list.
It's a very good list.
A lot of great movies on there.
Yeah, a lot of great movies. A lot of very surprising ones.
Yeah, well, and this is, I will say, the first movie I have not been able to finish due to that reaction. Normally, it's like, oh, I see something that bothers me, get a little woozy or something, check out for a second, come back, finish the movie. But this one, I had to nope right out of there until the end.
Yep. And again, I really appreciate you sticking around and giving me a ride home. Like,
of course.
Yeah. Like the whole movie, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, they're not coming back.
I guess my ride's gone.
Yeah. I'm like, it was no big deal. I was like, something must have happened. Like I kind of looked and saw like, oh, I have a message, so I'm not going to look until after the movie. And I'm like sitting there thinking like Nick was right next to me. And I was just like at the end of the movie, I was going to be like, hey, can you just drive me the mile to my apartment? Yeah. So anyway, I really appreciate that. But
no worries.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that should just about do it. That is our potpourri section. So before we go, once again, can you tell people where they can find you online, and what do you guys have in the pipeline for odd trilogies coming up? Like, what do you got going on?
Yeah. I'll start with odd trilogies before I give all my signatures. Yeah. So for odd trilogies, we just did the Rise of Henry Selick. We actually just this past weekend, we're supposed to have kind of a special episode. It's a type of thing we call a frequel, where it's like we've got an extra movie or two we want to talk about in relation to a trilogy episode we just did, but it's not a trilogy in itself. We were going to talk about, or we did actually talk about Monkey Bone, Henry Selick's one like mostly live action movie starring Brendan Fraser.
Nice.
We watched the movie, recorded the episode, had our friend Austin Webster on to talk about it. Something went wrong in the export and the file got all messed up. So we were unable to publish the episode. So that'll just be one that's lost to memory, but it was a good time to listen to. This coming weekend, like Thanksgiving weekend on Saturday, we've got Cartoon Saloon's Irish Folklore Trilogy, another animated trilogy from a Ireland-based animation studio, which you might remember from a couple years ago, their movie Wolfwalkers. Got some Oscar attention. That is the third movie in the trilogy, and they're all kind of based on pieces of storytelling from Irish folklore, which is where the trilogy gets the name. So that's next step in the pipeline for us. I also write reviews for the Film Yap. Check them out on social media, and you can find me on Letterboxd at Dandible, like mandible but with a D.
Nice.
Or on Twitter at Not So Handy Andy.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. And that sucks that you guys lost that episode. I've been there before. It is not. Yeah. Oh, that's rough. Yeah. So my heart goes out to the Odd Trilogies family.
Yeah, we live and learn.
Yeah. All right. Well, of course, you can find me on social media at Obsessive Viewer. I just started a new Instagram account for my solo podcast anthology. So follow that at OV Anthology Pod. So basically, check out Obsessive Viewer, obviously, Tower Junkies, and Anthology Pod. And yeah, once again, before I play us out, I do want to just pitch to you guys Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Tons and tons of ridiculous bonus audio content for as little as $1 per month or as much as $10 per month. There is a wealth of stuff there. So check that out, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm going to start playing us out. Once again, Andy, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for the ride home as well. And yeah, all right.
Happy to be here and happy to drive.
Awesome. All right, well, I will talk to you soon, and to the listeners, thank you guys so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Not sure what it is, but we'll see. And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. For the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, such as early access to episodes, TV, book, and movie reviews and reaction recordings, commentary tracks, and Patreon potpourri episodes, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. And then also the entire time, the other group of teenagers that were about, let's see, I think that there's maybe 8 or I'm going to guess like 10 seats in the row. There was like 7 or 8 kids. And they were in the row directly in front of me. And it was what you expect. Not to generalize, but it was what you expect when you see young kids unaccompanied by adults or anything in a movie theater, because it's not an experience where they're watching the movie. It's the experience of being out unsupervised. They're being out. They're out with their friends. So it is a chatter session. It is sharing like tweeting and stuff. They're like looking at each other's cell phones. For some ungodly reason, this is again, a generalization, but all big groups of teenagers have to move their seats around all the time, because they kept getting up, moving seats, switching seats, going out, coming back in. It was unbelievably irritating. Their phones kept vibrating. One of them had like their like one of those things where if you get a notification, the freaking flashes, and that was like happening constantly. It was excruciating. But again, I didn't care because I had my Angry Orchard and I had my own things going on. I'll talk about in a second. But I had my own, like I had my Angry Orchard. I had my third movie in a row. So I was good. I was fine. So, but one of the women in my row that was on the double date, apparently she was not, like, she was angry. She at one point like yelled at them, like she shushed them, and then she said, "Will you guys please sit down and shut the fuck up?" And then they didn't really say anything, but she was like, "You guys have been doing this whole movie. Just sit down and shut the fuck up. Like, don't." And then they got quiet and everything, and for the most part, they were fine. But what was funny was that the kids in our row, in my row, with like those people's rows as well, they started giggling because, oh, someone just got scolded, and then she just like looks over at them and says, "You guys too. You guys are fucking doing this too." And so they were pretty okay through the rest of the movie, but I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like it's really, it was really kind of entertaining. But my experience in the theater, and I will wrap this up soon, my experience was that...
This podcast was edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find links to all of our shows at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. For exclusive bonus content, including reviews, commentaries, and B-roll episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.